Hey Shaylee, this actually looks better to me. Okay, so let's just walk through this. So this is your file here. You can see the sheets you've got down here. Doesn't really matter which one we're on. We're going to go view the code though, and you could do Alt F11. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that. These are your modules. Okay, so here's your project, and you can kind of see the name of your document there. So these modules are the ones that we're focused on. And you have four of them. Okay, so you've got this one, you've got this one, which is blank, you got this one, which is blank, and then you have this other one that you've renamed get grade or get grades or something like that. So um, it looks like this one might have some similar names in this. Okay, I'm assuming this is the one that you're trying to use for your macro function. And this is actually on the right track. Okay, so we start off on the first line. Here's your function, and then the matching line down here is the end function. Okay, and then this is the part that you're going to go through and basically loop through the scores that are going to be in your document. Okay, and we're going to do this just like you would use any other function in Excel. So for example, if you use the sum function, you have to tell it which cell or cells to be looking for. And in this case, um, that's how we're going to implement it. It's just like that. So if you use the sum or the average, any of those functions, you have to declare a cell or cells to actually perform that work on. And this is exactly how this one's going to work. Okay, so I'll just walk you through it. The first step is if it's less than 65, then you're going to enter an F into the cell that you want. If it's less than 69, it's going to be a D. If it's less than 79, it's going to be a C. If it's less than 89, it's going to be a B. If it's less than 100, it's going to be an A. And then everything else, if it didn't find a match already, is going to get an E. Okay? So let's just see how this one's going to work. So if we go back out to your project here, so the way that we're going to implement it, we're going to type the equal sign. We're going to type a letter G-E-T because that's the name of your function. And we have one to choose from. So let's select it. And now we need to add the grade column, so that not the grade column, but the score. So if I click on that, it gives me the B2 cell. I close it and I press enter, and it comes up with an ambiguous name detected get grade. Okay, and so basically you got two things that are being used. Let's get rid of this. You got two things that are being used as get grade, so we need to go fix that. So you have this function here, but additionally this module 3 has a subroutine called get grade. And you've got a couple others here. Sub 1, get grade 1. So you get a bunch of these. I think it would be wise to delete these. Remove that module. Yes. No, we don't want to export it. We don't need the blank one. We'll remove that one as well. We'll remove module 1 as well. So let's remove that. No, we don't want to save you. So it leaves us with one of these. Okay, so let's save our work here. Great. I'm going to go to debug, compile the VBA project. And when I go to compile, it gives me another error. And it says there's a select case without an end select. So basically how this works is you bookend things, okay? So you start something and you end something, okay? So whenever you're going to do something in a program, we usually do this explicitly, which means we type it out and you can see it on the page. There are some other things that you can do which are much, much more fancy, but we're not going to get into that here. So your error message said that you've got a select statement, select case statement here, this line, and it doesn't have an end select. And so what they're talking about is this. So if we type end select, that closes that part of your function. Okay, so this is all one part, and then this blue part is then a portion of the function. So let's go back to debug and compile and see what we come up with. It doesn't look like it. Let me type that again. I don't know what happened there. Okay. I'm going to save this. Okay, and then I'll go to debug and I'll compile. And this time when I clicked on the compile button, so you can see it's not there anymore because it compiled and there were no errors. Okay, so this is your program right now. And if I close this and I go back here and I try to implement like we did before, so you can press the tab key, click on the column which has the grade, close the parenthesis, and now you'll see that I get an A. And if I double click on this bottom right corner here, it carries that all down. But you get some weird things. You get this E, here's another E, here's another E. So it looks like all your 100s get E's instead of A's. And then let's test some other things. So let's test 79.5 and see what happens. So 79.5 gets a B, okay? So 79.5 gets a B. So think about that in terms of your grading scale. And let's check an 89.5 and see what it gets. So those are being rounded up, which is probably not appropriate. But that's how you essentially implement, is you type the equal sign, you type in the name of your function, which was getGrade, and then you figure out which cell you want it to refer to. Okay, so let's go back in and look at your function here. Okay, so it runs, which is perfect. Okay, so this is the name of your function. It is not this. Okay, this is not the name of your function. That's just a name that you gave to your module. This is the name of it. And then this is the loop that it's going to do. So the first one, less than 65, that's correct. Your second case statement, though, if you think about this from just a number line perspective, if it's below 69 gets a D, that means that if it's above 69, like 69.5 or 6, it's not going to work. So we actually want to change this. And whoops. Okay. So we want to change this, and we want this so that the logic is correct. So less than 70 means 69.99999, and things less than that. The same is true for this case of 79. So we want to alter that to be less than 80, because if it's less than 80, that means it's in the 70s. Okay, and then this one, we want to change that one to less than 90, because those are going to be B's. And then this one, this less than, you can add an equal sign in here, which means that it's less than or equal to 100, and those things get A's. And then you've got this case else, which is perfect, okay? So we're going to change this, though, to be something else has happened, okay? And now we go back up, debug, compile, okay? No errors, that's good. So now let's go see what happens if we change things. Okay, so now if we look at our scores, let's add some really low ones here just to make sure the F's work. Okay, so we have a 79.5 up here, which shows up as a C. 89.5 shows up as a B. And again, this is how it's implemented. Okay, so it's equals whatever the name of your function is, and then the cell number that you want to evaluate. Okay, so that's basically the process of implementing it. You just needed to do a little bit of cleanup. Your function was pretty close. It wasn't going to compile, and you did have a naming error, but all of those things are pretty easy to fix. So hopefully this will be helpful for you. And I would strongly recommend that you do some checking too on, let's say, negative numbers. So what happens if you give a negative number? What happens if you get a number that's really high? Okay. What happens if you get a number that's just a little bit over 100? Okay. So the professor didn't tell you what to do with grades below 0 or above 100. So I wouldn't assume that you give them scores. I would assume that you do your something else has happened. You can also do this, which is kind of interesting. So we could come back here to your cases, and we can add another case. And this time we could say the case is less than 0, and we could say that the get grade, whoops, is going to get set to something like this. No scores below 0. Okay, and if we compile and we close this, and so now you can see that this negative score shows up with a strange message, but this is called overt failure. So the professor did not tell you what to do with negative scores. Typically, it's unusual for a person to get a negative score on an assignment. 0 would be the lowest, and typically 100 is the highest, according to his grading scale as well. So if you give all the scores above 100 some weird thing like this, you could additionally go back to your code, and we could say case is greater than 100, and we'll say get grade equals no scores above 100 allowed. Okay, let's compile that, and we'll close this one, and we'll come back here, we'll recompile all these. And now, instead of something else has happened, we can say that there's something very specific happened. So if we go back to this 95 and we enter 5T, let's see what happens there. Okay, so there's an error message that gets thrown. That's okay. That'll work. Okay, so that's the kind of the process of checking, reevaluating, improving, making things better the whole time. Okay, so this is kind of what this is looking like. So if you can give this a whirl and see how that works, again, get rid of those other modules. You don't need those. Clean things up a little bit, and it'll eliminate other possibilities for errors. So take a look at that. Let me know what you think, Shaylee. I'm glad you're sticking with this.